Hello and welcome to lesson 1 of week 11. In this lesson, we are going to look at how to design a web page using the Flex layout. My name is Mildred. In last week's lesson, we looked at two types of layouts. We looked at laying out a web page using the float method, and we also learned how to use the grid view method. In this lesson, we are going to look at how to use a Flex layout. Before the lesson, I have created the web page and I have styled the HTML elements that makes up this web page. But I want to use the Flex properties to position these different elements on different parts of the page. I have the flex.html file and the flex.css file. And on my HTML file, I have created a container using the section elements, and within the section we have the nav elements to hold navigation links, we have the article to hold the main page content, and the aside to hold aside information on the page. The page also has a header and the footer, which are outside of the section element. We want to make this section the container, and then all of the children of the section elements to be the items in the container. Now we have the nav, which is a direct child of the section. We have the article, which is a direct child of the section. We have the aside, which is a direct child of the section. So we are going to make this section a container, and the nav, the article, and the aside flexible items within the section container. To start using Flex layout, the first thing we do is to make the container a flexible container. And we do this by creating a style on the page. I will use the class selector, and I'm going to name this Flex container. And then I'm going to create a style for this. And the style I want to do here is to make the display property and set the value to Flex. I will go to my HTML file and put the class attribute with a value of Flex container. When I refresh my page, we already have this as a container and the different children position, but we want to position them better since they are flexible items on the container. I'll go back to my style sheet, and I'm going to say, I want to say all the elements that are children of the Flex container should have these styles applied. And the style I'm going to apply here is to make, let's say, the margin 20 px, and then the padding to be, let's say, 5 px. Save this, refresh my page, and I have them positioned better. We are going to look at the properties we can use on the Flex items first. The first property that we are going to look at is the Flex Grow property. And what we use this to do is to determine or to decide how each Flex item grows relative to the other item. Now we have the nav, the article, and the aside. Since we have the article as the main content area, we want it to grow faster than the nav and the aside. We will go and we'll create a style for the nav. We'll create a style for the article and also for the aside, but the aside already has a style here, so we'll just add the property to the style that the aside already has. The property we have is the Flex Grow is written like this. We want this to grow, let's say we want this 1, the next we'll put the value to be 1, and then let's say we want the article, which is the main content area, to take the value of, let's say, 8. I'll save this, refresh my page. We have another property which is called the Flex Shrink, which is the reverse of grow. And what we use this to do is to shrink items relative to the other items. And so let's say we just only want to set the shrink for the article, since that's the one we want to remain larger on the page. So let's say shrink should be 0 here. So I want you to really read and research. There are more properties and values, but in the scenario we are using and the type of page we are designing, we are using limited properties and values, but we're going to mention and we're going to look at other properties and values that do not apply to this web page, just for you to have information of what exists and how you can use them. When I save this and I refresh my page, once I try to resize my page and it doesn't even shrink and the rest shrinks until we don't see them anymore. Now this page is not responsive, but we can see that the article remains fixed without shrinking that content. We have another property that we call the flex basis. And what we use this to do is to determine the initial length of the flex item. Let's say we want the flex basis for this to be 200 pixels. So I'll put that for the nav. When I save this and I refresh, we have this nav container 200 pixels as the initial. We can change the value to see how large it grows, 500, and we'll have it larger. So this is how we use the flex basis. So let's say we'll leave it at 200. We have another property called the order. Now we have the nav here, the article here, the aside here. What if we want the nav on the right and the aside on the left? So this is currently number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. We want to leave the article as number 2. We want this to be 3 and this to be 1. We use the order like this. We will change the order for the nav to be 3. And we are going to leave the order of article to be 2. So order 2. And then we'll go to the aside and make the order 1. Save this, refresh my page, and we have changed the order of arrangement of the flex items on the page. We have another property, which is the flex property, that we can use to combine the flex grow, the flex shrink, and the flex basis all in one declaration. So let's say I want to put the flex for the nav, and I'm going to specify the grow to be 1, the shrink to be, let's say, 1, and the basis to be 200 pixels. Save this. I'll delete all of this. Refresh my page, and we'll have it reorganized because I took out the other property from here. If I put back the other here to be 3, then I'll have it switch position with the aside. Let us create another section on the page and let us illustrate the other flex properties that we have and see what we use them for. I am going to create a section here, and I'll close section. Within this section, I'll create 3 articles. I want to make this new section the flex container and all the article here the flex items. I'm going to create a style, but I'm going to name that style container 2. I'm going to go to my style sheet and I'll create a style for container 2. What I want to do with container 2 is to change the display to flex. I want to give it a background color of, let's say, I'll save this, refresh my page, and I have my second container with the flex items. I'm going to give each flex item a style so that we can see the boundaries of it. So I want every flex item that is a child of the container, and so we have this as the article. So this is going to affect, this style is going to affect this. So let's make this an article that is in the flex container. I want all of this to have a margin of, let's say, 5 pixels and a padding of 5 pixels. I want it to have a border that is 1 pixels dashed, and I want the border to be red. Save this. Let's refresh to see what it is. So we have 3 flexible items here on the page. Assuming we want to change how this is stacked, we don't want it to be like inline like this. We want it to be column wise, like block level. We have a property we'll add to the container called the flex direction property, and we can set the value to either column reverse, row reverse. Row is the default, so if I put it on row, it remains the same and it doesn't change. If I change it to row reverse, it's going to count from right to left, item 3, item 2, and then item 1. So let's do row reverse. Save this, refresh, and we have that. If I want to change it to be column, it's going to go from top to bottom, item 1, 2, 3. And when I change it to column reverse, it's going to go from bottom to top. So this is what we use the flex direction property to do. I'm going to change it back to the default row. We then have another property called the flex wrap property, and for us to illustrate this, let me add more items here. Let's say we have 6 items. Let's say item 4, item 5, item 6. Save this, and then let's say we make this container have a fixed width of 300 pixels. I'll save this. Let's refresh this to see what it looks like. So now we have this container and we have the items overflowing the container. We use the flex wrap property with a value of wrap to make every item that overflows the container to start on a new row. And so when I refresh this, we have the other overflown items on the new row. We can actually use another value called no wrap, which is the default, or we can use wrap reverse, which puts all the overflown content on top and the first, second, third at the bottom. So I'll save this, refresh my page, and I have the overflown at the top. We have a shorthand property to specify the flex direction and the flex wrap, and we call this the flex flow property. I can specify the flex flow and put the value of row and wrap. And so this is the shorthand for flex direction and flex wrap. Save this, refresh. I have my styles applied. Because this is inline, we want to specify the horizontal alignment of this flex item within the container. For this, we use a property called the justify content property, and we specify a value of center if we want it aligned to the center. For us to see this properly, I'm going to remove the fixed width, save this, and I'm going to refresh my page. So we have all the items at the center. If we want all the items not at the center, but to be left to right, to start from the left, we'll put flex start. Save this, refresh my page, we have it starting there. Right to left, we put flex end. Save this, refresh my page, and we have it that way. But if we want the vertical alignment and not the horizontal alignment, for this, let's put a height for this, and we want the height to be, let's say, 300 pixels. I'll save this, I'll refresh for us to see the height. So we have the height of the container to be 300 pixels. I'm going to put a fixed height for the items, and I'll make the height to be 20 pixels. So what we want to do now is to specify the vertical alignment now. For this, we use a property called the align items property, and we specify it like this: align items, and we'll put a value of baseline, a value of center, flex end, flex start, or stretch. So let's say we want it center, and then when I save this and I refresh my page, we'll have it at the center of the height now, because we are doing vertical. So I'll refresh my page and we'll have it at the center. If we use flex start top, flex end bottom. So try out the values to see what we use them for. But if we want to align a flexible item, we use a property called align self. And let me create a style here, and I'm going to put the align self, and I'll put it as flex start. I'll go to my flex item, and let me add it to the third item. Class is equal to align self. Save this, refresh my page, and I have only the third item aligned to the top.